Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Leading Yourself podcast. We've been talking a lot recently about how to end the year strong. And I want to continue that theme because we're getting closer and closer to the end of the year. So today we're talking about something that I believe is crucial for closing out your year strong in your career. We're focusing on our careers, and what we're going to be talking specifically is your year-end performance review. Most companies have one, and whether you find performance reviews exciting or intimidating, I want to help you show up prepared, confident, and ready to get the most out of this performance review. So grab a notebook or just settle in. If you're driving, keep listening, and let's talk about all the steps and tips to take the most out of your performance review. Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. This is your host, Carolina de Arriba. I'm an HR professional, health and fitness coach, wife, mom, and above all things, a goal-getter. In this podcast, we're going to be digging into all things leadership, professional and career development, habits, and relationships. This is a podcast for those who want to become the best version of themselves. Those who have big dreams and are willing to embrace the journey and put in the work to achieve them. My goal is to share with you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your journey. So let's dig into today's episode. Most companies have a process where at the end of the year, they have a formal performance review. Now, performance reviews or performance management should be an ongoing process that happens all year long. You should be getting and receiving feedback all year long. Not always happens. So this end of the year performance review is really a great opportunity to connect with our managers and have a conversation and a reflection on the year we're leaving behind and setting goals for the new year. Just like I've been talking about doing that in our personal lives when it comes to our careers, the performance review is a process that helps us do that. That helps us carve out the space to have a conversation about how the year went, what went well, what didn't went well, get some valuable feedback that can help us continue to grow. And also start talking about the year ahead, setting goals and discussing what are the right development measures that are going to help us continue to grow and continue to improve or raise the bar on our performance. That for me is, in a nutshell, what a performance review is. Now, I work in HR. I've been in HR for 20 years. And every year when we get to this process, no matter in what company you are, there's different people that approach it a little bit differently. And a lot of people go through the process and after the process feel disappointed. And today I want to avoid you feeling that way during your performance review. So what I want to do today is to share with you some steps and some tips to help you take the most out of your performance review. And I would say if you only take one thing from this episode today, is that the key, listen out, the key to take the most out of your performance review is your preparation. Preparation is the key. I know a lot of people that walk into a performance review as if they're walking into any other meeting without any preparation. And that is the worst thing that you can do. This is a meeting that deserves you taking the time beforehand to prepare. And I'm going to share with you some ways that you can do that today. And I would say if I were to define some steps for a performance review, the first step would be to reflect on your year and gather your wins. So before you even step into the meeting, it's important to take time to reflect by yourself on what is that you've accomplished this year. Compile a list of all the key achievements focusing on the impact that they've had either on the team, on the company that you work at, or on your customers or your clients. The more quantifiable those achievements are, the better. Did you save time? Did you increase revenue? Did you streamline a process? Did you improve the team dynamics? Write it all down. Now, here's one thing. Typically, as human beings, we have recency bias. What do I mean by that? We typically remember the very last thing that we were working on. And in order to make sure you capture all your accomplishments and all the impact that you've been able to make, it's important to travel back in time and remember what happened throughout the year. So one thing I like to do is I like to go through my calendar month by month. I look at my calendar and I start looking at what happened in January, what happened in February and March and April and so on, and try to identify what I was working then, what did I accomplish, and write it down on a list. Right? This is a chance. This time of reflection is a chance to look at the goals that you set last year, right, for 2024, and ask you as you're doing this review, did you meet them? And if so, how? How did you meet this goal? What is that you did? How did you approach these goals? And what was the impact that you created through accomplishing these goals? And if not, why? This reflection will give you a clear picture of your growth this year, right? And if the answer is no, I didn't accomplish those goals, try to identify what were the reasons. Did priorities change? Was a lack of resources? What that you procrastinated? Was that you didn't know how to approach them? Try to write that down as well, because that can be really indications of things where either you can ask for support or you can look into, could these things become development goals so they don't become barriers that hold me back next year when I set new goals. So that for me is kind of a first step. And I think it's important to take the time and reflect and look at the year holistically. Once you've done this reflection and you've taken notes of, your accomplishments, your impact, how did you approach it? If you didn't meet a goal, why was that? The next step is to assess your own performance. Typically, in performance reviews, at the end of the performance review, you get a rating. Now, there are companies that have got rid of ratings, but there has to be a mutual understanding between you and your manager on how your performance is. So whatever the rating system or the way of defining that is in your company, it's important that you take a moment to rate yourself. If you were your manager, how would you rate yourself? Not in a harsh or self-critical way, but in an honest, constructive way. And it's important that you base that on that self-assessment that you just did, right? Try to think about, where did you excel? Where could you improve? Try to reflect on those two perspectives. None of us are perfect and no one expects you to be perfect. So there's always going to be areas that you could improve. And it is important that you identify what those are. Here's one thing. Most people, and I think this is just human nature, right? But most people walk into the performance review knowing that the outcome of that conversation is going to impact their compensation. Whether it is a salary increase, whether it is a bonus, most companies tie compensation to performance, rightly so, because the reason why you are in your role is so you can create an impact that drives and helps the company get results. That's the model. But I think we need to think about our performance review beyond that. So when your mind is tinted by this is going to impact my compensation, you can have a personal bias to focus only on the positive things. And that is a mistake. If you want to take the most out of your performance review, not only in the short term, but most importantly in the long run, to help you grow in your career, achieve your career goals, help you grow as an individual, is important that you're completely honest in this process and balance as well. And when I say balance, I mean identify really your strengths and the things that you did really well, but also what were the things that didn't went so well? What are the things that you can continue to improve? That right there is gold. If you're able to have a balanced approach to identify both. And here is a powerful mindset. Focus not just on what you've done, but also on how you've done it. Did you learn new skills? Did you take feedback and turn it into action? Did you build stronger relationships? These things matter just as much as your results. So the what is important, but equally important is the how you went about achieving those things and what you learn in the process. I think it's also important to reflect on what you learned in the process. So, step 3 is to prepare and share your growth story. I'm going to quickly interrupt today's podcast episode to share something exciting with you. I personally believe that who you surround yourself with can change everything. The truth is, your circle can either lift you up towards your goals or can keep you stuck where you are. That's why in 2025, I want to surround myself with people who are committed to their personal growth, who dream big. I want to create a community where we can support each other as we reach new heights. That's why I'm launching the Leading Yourself Growth Community, a place where you can find the support, the accountability, and the inspiration that you need to take your life and your career to the next level. If you're interested to join this free community, just go to the show notes in this podcast episode to find out more information. And now, let's get back to today's episode. Your review isn't just about checking boxes. It's also about telling the story of your progress. So think about how you've contributed to team dynamics, to company culture, to major projects and results and outcomes. Be ready to illustrate how you've applied new skills or feedback that you got either last year or throughout the year to improve and grow. This is also a chance to express your career objectives. How does your current role align with where you want to go? Managers really appreciate employees who are proactive about their growth and who can articulate their vision for the future. So, as you're preparing your performance review, not only focus on your accomplishments and the challenges that you face, but also try to focus on what are the new skills that you learn and how you've applied them in your role to help you create more impact. Illustrate how you've incorporated previous feedback into your work. Discuss how you contributed towards team dynamics and company culture as part of your growth story and your impact story. And then very important is to take time to reflect on what is that I want in my career? What are my career goals? How do I believe my role can help me get there? What are some things that I would like to do next? If I was to choose my path, what would that path look like? As I said, I think managers really appreciate employees that are really proactive with their growth. And not only in saying what they want, but proactive in thinking how to get there, right? And they're willing to go the extra mile in order to get there. So think about, what is your vision? What are your career goals? What are some skills that you think can help you get to your destination? And think about ways that you could develop those skills even in your current role. I think a lot of people, when they get to this point of thinking about their career goals, they get stuck on, I need to move to a different role, or I deserve a promotion, or the next step should be a promotion. And I'll tell you that for me, there is a big difference between two concepts that a lot of times we get mixed up. A lot of times we say, I've been in this role for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. I need to move. I want to do something different. I want to grow. And I think always, before we get impatient about moving on, we need to ask ourselves, have I taken all that I could from this role? And during your performance review is a great opportunity to ask yourself that question and say, okay, did I take advantage of every experience I could accumulate in this role? Did I really leverage every opportunity this role provides to help me grow, to develop new skills, to fine-tune skills and strengths that I currently have? Or what else could I do in my role next year that could help me take me to the next level? Because thinking through that can prepare you for that conversation with your manager to really talk about what is the plan for next year in terms of your career development. But for any career development to be meaningful, it needs to be aligned with your aspirations, right? And what you value and where you can add value in the company. Okay, I think this topic deserves a podcast episode in its own. But for now, what I can say is your performance review is also a chance to express your career objectives. And it's important to ask yourself, how does your current role align with where you want to go? And remember, sharing that should not be something you're afraid to do, but rather think that most managers really appreciate employees that are proactive about their growth. Okay, the next thing is think about asking for what you need. A performance review is the perfect time to advocate for yourself. If there are areas where you need more training, more support, and support can look in many different ways, this is your opportunity to talk about those things. I mean, that should be something that you should be able to talk throughout the year with your manager, leveraging any kind of one-on-one meetings or other settings. But the performance review is a good way to tie everything together, to see the full picture, to tie it with your performance and your goals and your career aspirations. And kind of when you lay all of it on the table, and this is the support that I need. If you want to work on a specific skill, talk to your manager and request opportunities for development for that skill. And now, when I say develop a skill, I'm not talking about send me to a training. Yeah, maybe a training is involved, but keep in mind that to develop a skill, it's more than just the theory. It's more than just the training. The experience part is super important. How you are applying what you're learning or learning by doing. Most of the development of a skill is going to happen by doing. So think about opportunities. And if you have no idea what those opportunities can be, it's a great opportunity for you to ask for those opportunities. That's a lot of opportunities in one sentence. Now, don't stop there. I think one thing that is so critical that is going to help you feel that you took the most out of this performance conversation is asking for feedback. Specific feedback, to be a specific. Where can I improve? How can I better leverage my strengths? Show that you're interested in your growth, and your manager will likely invest in you. Right? So it's very important that you really ask for that feedback. And the feedback, again, as specific as possible. Think about specific examples, specific situations, both on how you are sharing your perspective, but as well as you're asking for the feedback. And sometimes when you're asking for feedback, a lot of times people will ask, okay, what feedback do you have for me? And that is too generic, right? And in that moment, there's a lot to process on the person that is giving you feedback. And now when I talk about feedback, feedback comes from a lot of people. One great practice that I love is doing kind of a 360 feedback as part of the performance review. And now you don't have to have a formal process in the company you work at to gather that feedback. You can just do it yourself by asking people you work with questions and asking them for feedback. When you are requesting feedback, I'm going to give you some tips on how to ask for feedback. The first thing is it needs to be specific. Instead of asking for general feedback, narrow it down to particular areas. For example, can you give me feedback on the structure of this report? That is more effective than any feedback on this, right? So be as specific. Can you give me feedback on how I did in this project, or how I did in leading this team, or how I did in this specific situation? Also, ask open-ended questions. Don't say, did I do good or bad? Or don't give those questions, but rather focus on open-ended questions. This encourages more detailed response. Instead of, did you like this? Try, what aspects of this did you like, or what could be improved? The next thing is provide context. So briefly explain the background or purpose of what you're asking feedback on. This really helps the person giving you feedback understand the bigger picture and provide more relevant suggestions. And this applies for, again, any situation where you're asking for feedback, not just your performance review. And then maybe you also highlight your concerns. You mention any specific areas you're unsure about. For example, I'm not confident about the clarity of my arguments. Whatever that is, could you focus on that when you're giving me feedback, right? Like, that's a great way to ask for feedback. And then very important is every time you ask for feedback, if you're asking others for feedback in preparation for your performance review, make sure that you express gratitude, because feedback is a gift. So it's very important to make sure you express that gratitude. Okay, step number 5 is own the conversation. This is a reminder. This isn't just your manager's meeting, right? It's your meeting too. I would say it is more your meeting than your manager's meeting. So bring your own agenda to the table. Share the obstacles you faced and how you've addressed them. Propose personal performance goals for the upcoming year. Make them specific, measurable, and tied to the broader career vision and the benefits of the team. Come prepared to the conversation and own the conversation. Be an active participant in the conversation. Don't go to your performance review just to listen to what your manager has to say, but be an active participant in the conversation. Share your perspectives. Ask questions. It should be a dialogue. It is meant to be a dialogue. When you lead the conversation with clarity and purpose, it shows that you're serious about your role, you're serious about the impact that you can create, and you're serious about your growth. So, here's your challenge as you prepare for your year-end review. Take ownership of your story. Use this as a chance to celebrate your wins, to learn from your mistakes and the challenges that you faced, and set yourself up for a successful year ahead. Remember, if you only take one thing about today's episode, that is that the most important thing, and I would say maybe that there's 2 most important things to take the most out of your performance review. One is preparation, and the second one is ownership. Prepare yourself and own the conversation. and own the outcomes, right? Your performance review is a reflection of your year. So no matter what the outcome is, no matter what the feedback is, own it. Own it, because it is just a reflection of your work. Is a reflection of how you showed up during the year. Own it. So prepare for the conversation and take ownership of your story and the conversation. And reminder, this isn't just about impressing your manager. It's also about investing in yourself and your future. And I would say that is the part that you should be most focused on, because this is not the last performance review you're going to have in your career. It's not. For most people, it's not. Maybe there's an exception to that rule. But for most people, this is not the last performance review that you're going to have. So instead of seeing this as the destination, as this is it, right? This is the destination and the outcome of this performance review defines the rest of my life. Think about it. This is an opportunity for me to reflect, to learn, to get feedback, to improve, and to invest in myself and my growth so I can achieve my goals in the future and I can become a better version of myself. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope that you walk into your review feeling prepared, confident, and excited about what's ahead. Until next time, keep leading yourself and stepping into your potential. Okay, my friend, that's all I've got for you today. But before you go, 2 quick reminders. Number 1, if we're not already friends on Instagram, let's get connected. You can find me as Leading Yourself Podcast. Number 2, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am incredibly grateful that you're in this journey with me. I want to leave you with one last thought. I want to remind you that you're destined for more and that every step that you take brings you closer to becoming that best version of yourself. Embrace each day as a chance to learn, grow, and chase your dreams. The world needs you to shine brightly, so go out and show up fully and authentically. Take care, and I'll see you next time.